The room was silent, not because of peace, but because of fear. 12 alien leaders sat around a massive stone table in the Unity Citadel, each one powerful enough to start a war. Their eyes glowed, claws tapped, tentacles shifted with irritation, and, in the far corner, sat a single human man. His name was Eli Voss. No armor, no weapon, just a black translator's coat and a small earpiece. He was here to translate, not to speak, not to move, not to be noticed. At least that's what everyone thought. Eli sat still, eyes down, hands folded. He had done this job many times. Sit, listen, translate, go home. But this room was different. Tension hung in the air like smoke. The leaders weren't here to talk. They were here to threaten, to test, to wait for one wrong word so they could explode. Eli felt it. Something was going to go wrong. The High Speaker of the Drovek Empire, a giant alien with 6 red eyes, slammed his fist on the table. "This is a waste of time," he shouted. "The Krell stole our mining world. We demand blood." On the other side, a blue-scaled Krell commander leaned back in her chair. "Maybe you should protect your planets better," she said coldly. The Drovek guard reached for his weapon. Eli's earpiece buzzed. He began to translate, voice calm. "The Drovek Empire states the theft of mineral rights is an act of war." He paused. The Krell commander smirked. Then Eli said something no one expected. His voice changed slightly. He used a word that hadn't been spoken in centuries. "And yet, they forget the Pact of Varnash, which says no race owns a living world." Every alien at the table froze, even the guards. The Drovek High Speaker narrowed his eyes. "Who told you that word, human?" Eli blinked. "What word?" "You spoke in ancient Varnak," the speaker growled. "That language is extinct." "I didn't mean to," Eli said slowly. But something in him stirred, like the word had come from somewhere else. The Krell commander stood up. "This is no ordinary translator." Eli stood now too. His voice was calm. "I'm only here to help. I don't want blood." The Drovek shouted, "You are manipulating us. You speak things that should not be remembered." Suddenly, a Drovek guard pulled a dagger and rushed the table. The room exploded in screams. Eli didn't think. He moved. He stepped in front of the Krell commander and caught the attacker's wrist. The guard was strong, twice his size, but Eli's grip was like steel. Gasps echoed across the chamber. The dagger dropped. Eli looked into the guard's eyes and spoke again, not in English, not in Galactic Common, but in the language of the Drovek mothers. "There is still another way." The guard fell to his knees. Everyone stared. The cameras in the room zoomed in. Eli had blood on his shirt, not his own. The dagger had scraped his arm. He stood quietly, breathing slow. And then, the Krell commander started to clap, soft at first, then louder. Then another joined in, and another, until the entire chamber was filled with applause. Not for a warrior, not for a politician, but for a translator. Outside, reporters screamed questions. "Who is he? Why did he speak like that? Is the human dangerous?" But Eli said nothing. He walked out quietly, blood on his sleeve and 1,000 eyes watching, some in fear, some in awe, and somewhere deep in the stars, a signal was sent to a forgotten place. A voice spoke in a shadowy room. "He speaks the forbidden tongue. Activate the Watchers. The flame of the old way may be returning." 3 days before the blood, before the applause, and before the strange words left his mouth, Eli Voss was in a small, windowless office on a forgotten space station called Relay Post 19. His desk was full of old language files, dusty alien books, and half-finished translation chips. He worked in silence, wearing worn-out headphones, his eyes red from long hours of reading. He was just a translator, not famous, not rich, not strong, just quiet. But he could speak 167 alien languages, and that was the part no one could explain. Years ago, when Eli was just a boy, he had been found alone on a crashed shuttle in deep space. No adults, no records, just a scared child, whispering words. No human had taught him. At first, people thought he was just lucky. Then he began speaking alien dialects no human had ever learned. The scientists called it linguistic instinct. The military called it dangerous. Earth Command tested him for years. They couldn't figure him out. Eli never had a family, never had a home. He had languages instead. Now, in the dusty corner of the galaxy, Eli lived quietly. He helped miners speak with lizard traders. He taught engineers how to say "don't explode that" in bug hive tongue. He lived with silence. He liked it. Until that day. That day the door opened. 2 men in black suits stepped in. Earth Command. Eli didn't stand. "Let me guess," he said. "You have another message you want translated?" The taller man shook his head. "No. We want you." "For what?" "There's going to be a peace meeting at the Unity Citadel. 10 alien species, 1 translator. We need someone neutral, someone who won't panic." Eli laughed. "There are 1,000 better options." "No," the shorter man said. "There aren't. The Krell requested you by name." Eli blinked. "The Krell? I've never even met them." The taller man handed him a data pad. On it, in ancient Krell script, was a message. "Send the soft voice that speaks like bone memory. Send the one who woke the Varnash word." Eli stared at the screen. He remembered something. A dream. No, a moment. Years ago, when he had spoken to a dying alien elder on a medical station. The alien had whispered something, and Eli had whispered back. He didn't know how. It had just happened. That elder had been Krell. 2 hours later, Eli was on a ship heading toward the Citadel. The crew gave him space. No one knew what to say to a man who could speak like ancient memory. He looked out the window at the stars. A voice whispered in his head. Not in English, not in any known tongue, just soft and deep, like it had been waiting inside him. "You are not just a listener. You are the echo." When he arrived, the guards scanned him twice. His translator badge beeped. His DNA came up clean, but something in the scanners glitched. "Strange," one alien muttered. "His neural pattern is shifting." Another said, "That's impossible." But Eli was already walking toward the chamber. Back in the present day, security teams now watched the footage of what had happened. Eli standing in front of a weapon, speaking in a dead language, stopping blood with words. One soldier asked, "How did he do it?" Another whispered, "He speaks like he remembers things he never lived." And far away, in a dark room where old things sleep, an alien hand wrote 3 words on stone: Eli Voss, Echoborn. The Unity Citadel was built from the bones of fallen ships. It sat on a dead moon with no air, no water, and no life, except inside its massive steel walls. Here, the most powerful alien factions of the galaxy met not to make friends, but to avoid war. The only reason no one had blown it up yet? Because they needed it. And now, into this silent powder keg, walked a quiet human named Eli Voss. As Eli entered the grand chamber, 12 alien leaders turned to look at him, some with curiosity, some with disgust, some with fear. He kept his eyes down, just like Earth Command had told him. Stay neutral. Translate only. Do not interrupt. Do not react. Do not speak unless spoken to. Eli had done this before, but never in a room where everyone wanted to kill each other. The Drovek High Speaker sat on one side, a massive beast covered in bone armor, his 6 red eyes never blinking. Across from him was the Krell matron with her shimmering scales and snake-like eyes, tapping her long claws on the table. Beside her, a hive queen hissed softly, her translator drone floating above her shoulder. A dozen other species sat in silence. Even the walls felt tense. Eli sat in the back, hands folded, breathing slow. He closed his eyes for a second. That's when it happened. A whisper, not in the room, in his mind. They will not speak truth, but you must. Eli opened his eyes. No one had noticed. The meeting began. Accusations flew like arrows. The Krell poisoned our trade routes. The Drovek stole ancient relics. The Hive demands compensation. Every word full of venom. Eli translated each line with calm precision, using the earpiece connected to his neural thread, but slowly. The words began to feel wrong. Eli could hear the truth beneath what they said, like a second voice behind the first. The Drovek high speaker said, "We demand justice," but Eli heard, "We are afraid they know." The Krell matron said, "We only want peace," but Eli heard, "We have already prepared our fleets." It wasn't technology. It wasn't guesswork. It was like he was reading their souls. Then, it happened. A sudden sound, a weapon cocking. A Drovek guard stood up, blade drawn, pointing it toward the Krell side. Instant chaos. Guards leapt up. Energy. Shields activated. The Hive Queen shrieked. Everyone yelled at once, and Eli? He stood. And for the first time, he spoke without translation gear. His voice echoed through the chamber in a language no one had heard in over 1,000 years. Not Galactic Common. Not any known dialect. Ancient Varnak. The Drovek high speaker froze. So did the Krell matron, so did the Hive Queen. Everyone stopped. Eli's eyes glowed faintly. Just for a moment. He said only one phrase. "The blood of old still watches." The Drovek dropped his blade. The Krell's breathing slowed. One of the Hive drones short-circuited, and then silence. Silence deeper than fear. The kind that only comes when you realize something bigger than war has entered the room. Eli sat back down. The others stared at him like he had just changed form. The Krell matron whispered, "He speaks the language of judgment." The Drovek high speaker growled. That tongue was buried with the dead kings. No one knows it now. Eli looked confused. "I don't know how I spoke it." Lies? No. Everyone saw his face. He was telling the truth, or worse. He didn't know what was waking inside him. From the shadows, a hidden camera blinked red. Across the galaxy, in a secret Earth Command facility, a general stood watching. "Send the file to Black Division," he said. "This isn't just a translator. This is something else." And far beneath the Unity Citadel, where old machines sleep, a statue opened its eyes for the first time in 2,000 years. It whispered in the same tongue Eli had spoken. "The Echoborn has entered the council." Silence burned hotter than fire. Eli sat back down, his heart pounding, but his face calm. The words he spoke in ancient Varnak still echoed through the council chamber, floating like smoke that wouldn't fade. 12 alien leaders, each powerful, dangerous and stubborn, sat frozen, their claws and fangs halfway raised, caught between fear and awe. No one moved. Even the walls seemed to hold their breath. The Krell matron finally broke the silence. She stood slowly, her long robes dragging behind her, and pointed one clawed finger at Eli. "You wear no crown," she said. "You carry no blade. But your words weigh more than warships." Eli didn't answer, because he didn't understand it himself. The words had poured out of him like they'd always lived there, but he had never studied ancient Varnak, not formally, not deeply. It was like the language had been waiting in his blood. The Drovek high speaker slammed his hand on the table. "He is manipulating us." "No," whispered the Hive Queen. "He is remembering us." Eli stood again. Not with power, not with command, but with presence. He looked at each leader, one by one. Then he said, softly but clearly, "I don't want control over you. I want to remind you of what you were, before fear, before hate, before war. You came here to talk, but all you brought were weapons. So I brought something older. Memory." He walked slowly around the table, speaking not in one language but in 12, each word directed to a specific species, in their original root dialect, some forgotten even by their own historians. He spoke to the Hive Queen in the song speech of her ancestral queens, to the Krell matron in the rhythm chant of the deep-scale priests, to the Drovek in the war poem of their first sun generals. As he spoke, something strange happened. Each alien leader sat down. Each weapon was lowered. Each eye turned not toward enemies but toward Eli. Guards in the upper balconies panicked. Some ran. Some whispered, "He's dangerous." But no one could fire, because nothing in Eli's hands was a weapon. And yet he had disarmed a room full of killers. Suddenly a blast echoed through the chamber. A secret Drovek assassin, hidden in the air vents, jumped down and rushed at the Krell matron with a plasma blade. Too fast for guards, too sudden for shields, but not too fast for Eli. He moved like he knew the future. He stepped between them and raised one hand. Not to block, not to fight, to speak. He shouted one word, a single command. In the language of the assassin's bloodline, known only to their ancient priest warriors. "Bend." The assassin screamed, dropped his weapon and fell to his knees, trembling. The Drovek high speaker stared at Eli, wide-eyed. "That word is sacred. It's not in any record." "I didn't read it," Eli said quietly. "I remembered it." The chamber was dead silent. And then someone clapped. The Krell matron. Then the Hive Queen clicked her mandibles in agreement. Then others joined, until the whole room was filled, not with violence, but with applause. For a translator, for a human, for something that shouldn't be possible. Later, back in the resting chamber, Eli sat alone, breathing hard. He wasn't shaking because he was scared. He was shaking because he didn't know what he was anymore. In a distant system, a hidden temple lit up after 2,000 years of darkness. A massive gate opened slowly, and something ancient awoke. A whisper echoed through cold stone halls. The echo-born speaks the first tongue. The tide is turning. The chamber had calmed, but peace in the Unity Citadel never lasted long. Eli Voss sat alone in the translator's lounge, breathing slowly. His hands trembled, not from fear, but from the echoes of the ancient words still ringing in his head. He wasn't supposed to be the center of the story. Just a voice, a tool, but now the galaxy was whispering his name like a prophecy. Outside the chamber, shadows moved, not rumors this time, not whispers. Real danger. 3 cloaked figures crept through, the outer corridors, silent, fast, invisible to normal sight. Not Drovek, not Hive, not hired thugs. These were mind raisers, ghost assassins from the Ashen Triad, a secret cult that believed any being who speaks the first tongue must be destroyed. They weren't here to kill a politician. They were here for Eli Voss. The first assassin entered silently, holding a curved plasma knife. Eli heard nothing. But Kalen, the AI assistant linked to the Citadel's floor sensors, flickered alive in his ear. "Warning. Heartbeat spike. Room breach detected." Eli stood, up just in time to dodge the blade. The knife sliced through the air, missing his face by inches. He grabbed a chair and swung. The attacker flew back, crashing into a console. Another appeared at the door, then another. Now it was 3 against 1. Eli backed up, no weapons in his hands, heart racing. "You don't have to do this," he said. One assassin tilted their head. "You carry the forbidden voice. You carry danger. You carry memory that should stay buried." Another hissed. "We burn the echo wherever it rises." Eli closed his eyes. He didn't want this, but deep inside him, something didn't agree. As the assassins moved in again, Eli's body shifted, not visibly, not like turning into a monster, but his breathing slowed. His hands moved differently, like someone was guiding them. He reached for the fallen blade from the first attacker. The moment his fingers touched it, blue light burst across his veins. The symbols on the blade glowed in response, symbols only readable by native-born of the Ashen Triad. The attackers froze. "Impossible," one whispered. "He's one of us?" Eli looked confused. I don't know what I am. Then he moved. Fast. Too fast. He spun the blade, blocked a second strike, kicked one assassin through a table, and pinned another to the wall in seconds. He didn't think. He didn't plan. He moved like memory. The last assassin charged, blade raised. Eli slashed low, twisted, and struck the attacker's chest. Blood sprayed across the floor, red and thick. The assassin fell, breathing but unconscious. Eli dropped the blade. His chest was rising and falling like a beast's. His hands were covered in blood, and then he heard it. Applause. He turned. In the doorway stood the Krell matron, the Hive Queen, and the Drovek High Speaker. None of them were clapping out of joy. They clapped because they finally understood. He's not just a translator, the matron whispered. He's a living weapon, said the Hive Queen. No, said the Drovek High Speaker. He's something older. Eli stared at his hands. He hadn't wanted to hurt anyone, but the blood was there. Warm, real, shocking. He looked at the assassin's blade still glowing with blue symbols. Not just glowing, responding to him. And suddenly, he heard a voice in his mind again. The first tongue is not only for peace. It was once the language of war. Across the galaxy, deep in the vaults of the silent monks, ancient scrolls lit up. One monk looked up and gasped. It has happened, he said. The Bloodspeaker walks again. The galaxy couldn't stop watching. Security footage from the Unity Citadel had been leaked. It showed a quiet human named Eli Voss standing in front of alien warlords, speaking words no one had heard in over 1,000 years. And then, applause. Applause. From ancient enemies. Applause after blood was stopped with a sentence. But no one knew exactly what he said, because the language was dead. Lost. Until now. Across planets and moons, scholars and language experts tried to decode the audio. The best. AI translators failed. Their reports returned with one line. Unknown dialect. Closest match. First tongue. Level. Unrecorded. But there was one place that understood it. A hidden monastery on a jungle moon, where monks studied forgotten words. One of them, an old man with silver eyes, played the clip once. He stood, up trembling, then whispered, "It wasn't a threat, it was a memory." Inside the citadel, Eli Voss sat quietly in a sealed medical chamber. Blood still stained his uniform. He stared out the glass wall into the stars. He wasn't alone anymore. Now he was watched by everyone, alien diplomats, Earth command agents, even the Krell matron herself, who visited and left without a word. But no one asked him what he said that day. No one asked because deep down, they were afraid of the answer. But Eli remembered. He remembered every word. He hadn't spoken from a script. He hadn't even known what language he was using. He just opened his mouth, and something ancient spoke through him. Not like possession. Not like control. More like something buried in his bones had finally woken up. He closed his eyes now and repeated the words silently. You fight over dust, forgetting you were once fire. You raise walls, forgetting your hands once built stars. You hate what you fear when you fear what reminds you of yourself. I am not your enemy. I am your echo. Those words didn't stop a war. They stopped a pattern. Because every species in that chamber had once told the same lie. We are different. We are alone. We are first. But Eli's words reminded them. They had all come from something older. Something shared. A time before war. Before pride. Before silence. That's what shook them. Not his voice. Their own reflection in it. In the Earth, command control room, a general stared at the transcript. He reminded them of their roots, she said. Another agent replied, So, he's a peacemaker? No, the general said. He's a mirror. He shows people what they truly are. That's why they listen. Another paused. Or maybe he doesn't just translate words, maybe he translates souls. Back in his chamber, Eli stood in front of a mirror. He had seen his own blood. He had spoken words no teacher had taught. He had touched an assassin's weapon, and it had recognized him. He asked himself now, "Who am I?" And deep in his chest, something answered, not a voice, not a thought, a feeling. Ancient, heavy, but clear. You are the bridge. Across the galaxy, temples opened, elders woke, factions moved. Some wanted to protect Eli, some wanted to worship him, some wanted to erase him, but all of them now believed in one terrifying truth. The first tongue has returned, and it speaks through a human. The stars above the Unity Citadel were quiet, but the galaxy was not. Since the day Eli Voss stood and spoke forgotten words, words that bent warriors and stopped blades, everything had changed. Alien leaders whispered his name like a prayer. Spies wrote his face into their reports. Religious cults called him the Echo-born. And some just wanted him gone. Eli Voss sat alone in a dark room, high above the citadel, looking at his blood-stained hands. He hadn't asked for any of this. He never wanted to be a symbol or a weapon. He just wanted to understand others, to help people speak. But now they didn't want translation. They wanted truth, and truth was heavier than any language. Across the galaxy, people gathered around holograms. The moment when Eli said the first tongue, the moment when assassins dropped their blades, the moment when blood, fire, and silence all bowed to a man with only words. No one understood what really happened, except Eli, and maybe not even him fully. Earth Command offered him medals. He refused. The Krell matron offered him land. He refused. The Hive Queen offered him her people's loyalty for a generation. He bowed, but refused. And when the Drovek High Speaker asked, "What do you want, human?" Eli finally answered, "Silence." But silence never came. Because when the echo speaks once, it cannot be unheard. One night a messenger came to Eli's door, a young alien child, half Krell, half human, clutching a note in trembling hands. She didn't speak. She just handed it to him and left. Eli opened the folded paper. One line was written in a glowing blue script. "We remember your voice. We need you." The message came from a distant colony, a planet called Vel Tarun, on the edge of known space. There, war had already begun. Two alien races, ancient enemies, were fighting over water rights. Nothing new. But the report said something strange. Both sides were using the same war cry, a phrase, in the first tongue. Eli boarded a ship alone. No guards, no guns, just a translator's earpiece and the clothes on his back. He didn't know if this was a trap. He didn't care, because if his words had caused this, then his words would end it. When Eli landed on Vel Tarun, the air was dry and bitter. He walked across a battlefield littered with wreckage and smoke. Soldiers from both sides watched him, silent, not because of who he was, but because of what he was becoming. The child from legends, the man who didn't command with force, but with memory. In the war tent, commanders stared at him. One said, "You carry no flag." Eli replied, "I carry your forgotten peace." Another said, "What gives you the right to speak here?" Eli looked them in the eye. "I don't speak for you," he said. "I speak to the part of you that remembers how to stop." And then he spoke. No microphone. No translator, just his voice, and when he did, both commanders began to cry. They didn't know why. They just remembered something deep, their great-great ancestors sitting by the same fire, before they were enemies, before they were different. The war stopped that day. No weapons, no paper, just words. And when Eli walked out of the tent, his clothes were stained again, not with blood, but with dust from a battlefield that didn't need more graves. And once again, people clapped, soft at first, then stronger, until both armies stood together and gave the man without armor a hero's salute. Back at the Citadel, Lady Kaelin, the galaxy's archivist, stared into a screen. "History will remember him," she said. One assistant asked, "As what?" She smiled. "As the first man who made war weep." And yet Eli didn't stay. He didn't build a kingdom, he didn't become a ruler, he walked away, always walking, always listening, because there were more people out there who forgot how to speak, and only one man who could remind them. Years later, a child sits under a glowing tree on a peaceful world. He listens to his mother tell a story. "A long time ago," she says, "the galaxy was always at war, until a man came who didn't raise a weapon. He raised his voice." "What was his name?" the boy asks. The mother smiles. "No one knows anymore, but they called him the man who spoke peace in war." Legacy. On Earth, there is now a school called the Voss Institute for Galactic Understanding. It teaches language, history, and empathy. Not every student has Eli's gift, but all learn the same truth. Words can be weapons, but they can also be wings. In a temple beneath an alien ocean, an old door finally opens. Inside, a single sentence glows on the wall. The echo lives. And somewhere in the stars, a ship moves alone. No weapons, no banners, just one man ready to listen.